Hôm nay mình học gì vậy? Well, today we are going to be doing speaking. Okay, so that should be pretty interesting. Okay, yes, we're going to be doing speaking. Anh nghĩ hôm nay là, well, chúng ta có thể là do whatever you want, right? Because it's speaking, it doesn't really matter, right? We're gonna do part 1, part 2 với part 3. Và như các bạn cũng có request thì hôm nay thì chúng ta cũng sẽ stream entirely in English again. Okay, so yeah, nếu mọi người có cái topic nào cho part 1, part 2 hoặc là part 3 các bạn muốn request thì các bạn cứ gõ ra ha. You know, like speaking anh sao cũng được hết, cho nên là cứ drop một cái suggestion, sau đó là mình đi theo cái suggestion của các bạn thôi. Well, happy early birthday. Okay, anh ơi, mình nên structure một câu speaking như thế nào? Cứ give reason rồi example. Anh nghĩ là speaking á, thì nó rất là freestyle. Em nói ra thì thường á là anh sẽ trả lời cái câu hỏi, sau đó là anh sẽ dựa vào cái câu trả lời đó để anh nói tiếp thôi. Okay, please, part 3 today, of course. How is a culture formed? Thì trả lời sao? That's a really good question. How to answer some awkward questions. All right. Okay, anh chờ các bạn lên tới khoảng 100 viewers thì anh switch qua English nha. So just a heads up. Okay, so anh thấy có một vài bạn suggest một vài cái idea về law với lại là về history. Okay, so let me find some part 1 questions about law and history. Okay, IELTS Speaking part 1, history. History. What are some history questions? Okay, I found some. Let me just copy them from the internet shamelessly. Okay, let me get some questions from the internet about history. All right. Okay, 3 questions đi ha. Environment nữa. Okay, tell you what, anh không nghĩ là mình sẽ có kịp thời gian để mà mình làm hết cho cái nhiều topic đâu. So hôm nay chắc là mình start cái phần part 1, mình làm một cái bài về history đi. Sau đó chút nữa qua part 2 thì chúng ta sẽ tính tiếp. Okay. Got old buildings. All right, old buildings. I'll note that down. Old buildings. All right. Okay, so shall we get started? Are you guys ready for English only? And I part 2, ví dụ mình nói một chuyến đi thú vị mà không hết 2 phút mà hết 2 phút không nói đến phần thú vị thì có sao không? It's okay. Alright, so shall we get started with the English only section of the stream? Are you guys ready? Is everyone ready? Okay, no turning back now. It's completely English now. Okay. All right. So let's get started. So, first of all, welcome everyone to the stream. Hope you're having a great Tuesday, or actually, no, it's Wednesday. I don't know what time it is, but today we are going to be talking about history. And, yeah, we have 3 questions today. So the first question, a really simple one. Do you like history? The second question is, what historical period interests you the most and why? And the third question is, are there any historical monuments or sites that you would like to visit and why? All right, so let's get started. So here's my... let's say my formula, all right? Here's what I usually do to answer a question. So if you've been watching the stream for a long time, you would know that usually I like to give a direct answer first, and then I'll go and say something completely random. Okay, so let's take a look at this first question. So, do you like history? It's a simple yes or no question. So the first thing you need to do is you need to say yes or no. And one thing to keep in mind is that you shouldn't repeat the entire question back to the examiner. So, for example, you shouldn't say, or they'll ask you, do you like history? You shouldn't say, yes, I like history. You can say something like, yes, I do, or no, I don't. Okay, it's a really simple way to avoid repeating words that the examiner uses. Okay, so yes, I do, or no, I don't. So let me know. Do you enjoy history? All right, we're talking about history in general, not history as a subject. Okay, so do you like learning about the past? Do you like watching videos about the past? Things like that. Okay, let me know in the chat. How do you feel about history? Again, not the subject, okay? Not the subject. Right, keep it on topic, please nhỉ. All right, so cần làm gì thì làm liền says yes. How's everyone feeling? Why is no one typing anything? Okay. So yes or no? Just keep it simple. History. What do you think about it? Avocado says, yes, I do, but I don't like it as a subject in school. Okay, so Lang says yes. Andy says no. Nam says no. Ponzo says yes. Ananas says, feel grateful about ancestor. That's not a yes or no. Okay, so a lot of yeses and a lot of no's. So I prefer to answer yes here. I think history is something that's pretty interesting. Again, we're not talking about history in schools or the way that it's taught. We're just talking about history in general. Okay, so I'll show you how to answer both yes and no. So let's start with yes first. So let's say you answer yes, I do, and then you say something like, because I really like learning about let's say for myself, I love learning about like the events that happened in the past and their impacts on today's society, right? So I'll say something like, I really like learning about the events of the past and its effects on history. Okay, so for example, I'll talk about something really random here. So if you understand history a little bit, then you probably could give a very good example here. So for example, I'll say something very random like, did you know that the fall of the city Constantinople is the reason why America exists? You probably didn't know that. Okay, so this is just my answer in the test room. I would say something random about the Ottoman Empire, but you don't need to say anything like that. You can just give a very simple, let's say a simple example here. So something like, for example, I like learning about the different, let's say, dynasties in my country and what they contributed to the country. All right, so just give a very quick example here. I think this is good enough for a part 1 question. You don't really need to answer it in much detail because, again, it's part 1. So save your answers for part 3 and a little bit in part 2. Okay, so yeah, I would probably give an answer like this, and then I'll give an example. Hi, Kevin. Oh, yeah, hi, Huang. I have a fondness for history. I am a history aficionado. Well, that's not a common word. Usually you say I'm a history buff. Aficionado is like for other things. Usually the collocation we use is I'm a history buff. Dynasties is like the Nguyen dynasty, the Le dynasty, like Judan, you know. All right, so yeah, that's how I would answer if I said yes. And if you say no, then I have a very easy way for you to keep going with your answer. Usually when you answer no, it's a bit harder to keep talking because you explain like, oh, no, I don't, because I think it's a bit boring, something like this, right? And you get stuck here because you already said you don't like it, so it's hard to go into detail about it. So what I would recommend is you can give an alternative, and what this means is you will say, instead of learning history, what do you like learning about? Right? So for example, you don't like history, but you really like science, or you really like chemistry, something like that. You can say like, I don't because I think it's a bit boring. Instead, I like learning about science. And then you can say, in particular, I really enjoy studying physics and chemistry because it helps me understand the world around me. All right, so this is how you would answer a no answer, right? So instead of just stopping at, yeah, I don't like it because it's boring, you can say, instead, I like learning about something else. So this is called giving an alternative, and it's a completely normal way to keep answering because you already said you don't like it. So if you keep on trying to give ideas about why you don't like history, it's a little bit hard. So yeah, think about an alternative. All right. Yeah, movie buffs, history buffs. So that's usually what you would say. All right, so that's it for the first question. Again, you don't really need to give a super long answer. Just keep it short and keep it simple. Okay, it's part 1. Don't need to strain yourself. All right. Any questions for this question or my answers? All right. You can give your answers in the chat. You can say what you would like to answer, and I'll give you some feedback right away. So someone requested part 3 celebrities. Okay, I'll write that down. Celebrities. Okay. All right. Any questions? Any questions? If only we had streamed yesterday, right? Because yesterday was April Fool's. It would have been so funny. Thanks, BB. Can we try doing part 3 old buildings? We already have old buildings for part 2. But sure, why not if we have time? Okay, so yeah, speaking of time, let's continue. Let's talk about the second question. Again, a really difficult question here. So this question is, what historical period interests you the most and why? Okay, so I want you to try answering this question. Okay, type in the chat, what is your favorite historical period? And this means like a time in history that you really like. Okay, try to think about a time in history that you really like. Whenever I see you stream, I don't know, I'm just going with the flow. A lot of people want me to talk about history. So we're talking about history. Okay, Link says Uncle Ho's Prime. All right. But can you actually go into detail about that? What is Dim? What do you mean? All right. Yeah, it's a hard question. Dinosaurs. Well, dinosaurs don't count as history. They're prehistory. Okay, 1911. What do you like? 1911. 1945 war. Which war? Independence. 1945. What happened in 1945? 1975 makes more sense. But that's not a period. That's a year. Okay, a period is like between 1954 and 1975, for example. That's a period, right? It's not just 1 year. World War II. Okay, so interesting. Again, it's a decently hard topic. So renovations in Vietnam in 1986. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so the modern war, as it's the era that shows the modern war. What does the modern war mean? Sublime. I think you mean sublime, like Sublime. The First World War. Interesting. Okay. Okay, the Jung sisters. All right. Good answer. Good answer. Okay. So I really don't have an answer for this. I don't have a period that really interests me. I like history in general, so I don't have a historical period that I find interesting. So I think for a lot of people, we can't really think of what to say or how to answer this question. Let's say you can give a short answer like, the one that interests me the most is the Vietnam War. Okay, this is the time period between 1954 to around 1975-ish. Technically, it ends a bit sooner, but let's just say from 54 to 75. Okay, so let's say this is your direct answer. What can you say about it? Well, of course, you can explain why it interests you. You can say something like, because it shows how... then we need a word to say how much Vietnamese people love their country. So what's the word here? Okay? To say... Okay, let me just type it in Vietnamese. Okay, what's the word we use here? Devoted. Yeah, so the best word to use here, patriotic. Okay, patriotic or patriotism. Okay, so let's say it shows how patriotic the Vietnamese people are and how devoted they were to liberating the country, or to liberate. Or actually, no, to liberating the country makes sense. Okay, so for example, you can say something like this, but still, it's a decent answer, but you can go into a little bit more detail. Okay, so how can we go into detail for this question, or for this answer? Okay, well, you can say are, but Actually, you can say were for both of them. I think were makes more sense because it's in the past. It's not to say that they're not patriotic now. It's just we're talking about the past, so it makes more sense to use the past tense. Liberating means to free something, right? So to liberate the country means to free the country. No, you can say the Vietnam War. It's the war where we fought against the Americans. That's called the Vietnam War. It's generally accepted as that time period. It's easier to understand. From our perspective, we would say something like the war to resist Americans or America, something like that. But in general, saying the Vietnam War makes more sense. It's shorter and it's easier to remember. All right, so yeah, Link gives an interesting idea here. You can probably give an example of something that you really like, right? So you can talk about an example of something that happened during this period that really inspires you. And yeah, you've seen a documentary about that period. So you can give an explanation as to why you know about it, I guess. That makes sense? Right. But yeah, you can give an example here. So it's almost, well, I say almost, it's in a month. But yeah, so the liberation of the South, April 30th is coming up. So for example, you can say, right, and this period has one of the most iconic pictures in Vietnamese history of the tank which crashed through the gates into Independence Palace. Something like this, right? So you can say something like, and for example, this period has one of the most iconic pictures in Vietnamese history, which is, and then you can say something like, which is the picture of a tank crashing into the gates of the Independence Palace on April 30th, 1975. Actually, I don't think for example makes a lot of sense here. Let's just say in addition. All right, that's just another reason. Okay, right, so yeah, I think if you can give an answer like this, it's really good. But I think a lot of people will stumble on this question because there's not really a historical period that really interests you. A lot of people, I know they don't really like talking about history because they think it's boring. So I'll give you an answer that you can give in case you don't know what to say. Okay, so in part 1 and also in part 3, if you don't have an answer, so for example, there's not really a historical period that interests you, you can totally say, I don't have any historical period that interests me. All right. So for example, you can say, to be honest, I'm not really interested in history. So there's not a single period that really or that I really like. Okay, you can give this as an answer, that's fine. But if you do, it's important that you keep talking after you give this answer. So what you can do is you can explain why you don't like talking about history. Okay, so you can say something like, this is because I find history a bit boring, especially the way that it's taught in schools. So I usually don't look into history-related topics. Okay, so you can use the word look into here. It's a different way of saying to do research about something, right? So look into something means you do research about it, you find out information about it, and so on. Yeah, that really appeals to me. That works too. I said no a lot of the time. I got a 7.0, so fluency matters most, not idea. Yes, so fluency is the thing that really matters. I completely agree with that. The same rule does apply. I've gotten so many 9s, and every single time I see a hard question or I hear a hard question, I just say, I don't know. And then I give an explanation. Okay. So yeah, same rule does apply. Anyway, so that's how you would answer if you have zero clue what to say. Just be honest and say, I don't know. But don't just stop at saying, well, I don't know, or I'm not really interested. Start explaining why you're not interested as well. Okay? All right. Or I think you mean to say, is it necessary to avoid some words in the question? It's not necessary. If you can, then that's good. But if you can't, that's fine. Okay. If you can, it's good. If you can't, it's fine. All right, so that's the second question. And since time is a bit short today, I think we'll skip the third one and let's just move on to part 2. So earlier in the stream, someone suggested that we do something about old buildings. So let me find something about this. Actually, it's kind of repetitive. I just looked it up. It's also about history. Can anyone suggest something other than history, please? I am getting a bit fed up of talking about history. Hello, Pam Chiwai. All right. So someone asks, is it okay to give a general answer and not personalize? It's fine. It's completely okay. No, we talked about law last time. Okay, last time we already talked about law. Okay. Thank you, Pam Chi. All right, so an easy topic, please. Easy topic. It's not that it's easy for me, or it's not for me, it's for you. How about a culture related one? How about no? All right, let me find something that's a bit simpler. Okay, so a decently difficult question here. All right, so let's take this one then. Okay, describe a book you enjoyed reading. How about that? Are we okay with this topic? Oh, invite people onto the live stream? That sounds interesting. Okay, right. We talked about law last time, so I think this time we'll talk about something else. Okay, we talked about history, we talked about law, and I like talking about these topics, but they're a bit repetitive. So let's do something else. Ask anyone and then decide by yourself. I can do that because your suggestions are not okay. All right, so let's talk about a book that you enjoyed reading. Okay, so you should say what the book was about, where you read it, why you liked it, and explain how you felt after reading it. Okay, so when you talk about a book, this is quite a hard topic, I think, because many people don't read for leisure anymore, and so it might be a little bit difficult to talk about a book. All right. And furthermore, when you're talking about the book, usually books that you guys read are in Vietnamese. So it's a bit hard to summarize everything and to talk about it in English. So I'll give you some easy ways to talk about books. All right. So going off from last time, usually I structure my part 2 talks around 3 main parts. So I'll give a short introduction into the topic, and then I'll give the main description, and then I'll talk about my feelings, okay? These are the big 3 that I use in most of my talks, okay? So in the introduction, I'm going to give some information, right, about this book. So that will be for later. The main thing I want to focus on is how we can describe the book. Okay, so like I said, it's really hard to talk about books, especially ones that you've not read for a long time, or even books that you have read recently. It's still hard to give a good summary because there's a lot of things in the book and you don't remember everything, and then you have to translate everything from Vietnamese into English. It's really hard. So here's my suggestion. Instead of going into so much detail that it makes it hard to talk about, I would suggest saying something general here. So, after saying something general about the book or about the plot of the book, you can go into detail, okay? This is how I usually do it. So, for example, let's say I want to talk about, and this is completely made up, by the way, I've never read this book. Let's say I want to talk about Harry Potter. All right, so it's a decently easy book to talk about because most people already know about it. So basically, instead of having to go into detail and talk about, hey, Harry Potter is a fantasy book, there are three main characters, and then you have to talk about their origins, and then you have to talk about each detail in the books, it's really hard. So usually what I'll do is I'll just say it's like a typical, let's say, fantasy adventure story. Okay, so I'll give some general description about the book's plot. Right, so it's a typical fantasy adventure story. Okay, you're so scared of being cut off when speaking. That's fine. Okay, no, we are talking about the content, but we're just talking about the content in general. So it's a typical fantasy adventure story, and then I'll use a preposition, something like with, and then I'll just start listing some details off the top of my head. Okay. Right. So let's say you can say it's like a typical fantasy adventure story with many, let's say, thrilling moments, heroic, heroic. I would use the word moment here too. So maybe let's say something like thrilling plot lines, heroic moments, and funny characters or something like that, or interesting characters. Okay, so these are just some general descriptions about the book's plot, right? And then after you give the general idea about it, you can go into a little bit of detail, and usually I'll choose something that I really remember about the books. Okay, so I'll say something like my favorite part of the book. Okay, so instead of having to talk and to say everything there is to say about the book, I'll just choose one part that I really remember, and I'll talk in detail about it. Okay? I thought you said presupposition. No, preposition. Okay, can we talk about the theory about the book in this topic? What do you mean, the theory about the book? I don't understand what that means. Okay, heroic. It means something that heroes do. That's the best description that I can give, or the best definition that I can give. All right. So yeah, we'll talk about my favorite part of the book. And again, like I said, I've never read Harry Potter, so I'm completely making this up. Okay? I'm just going to completely make this part up because I've seen the movies-ish. I've never read the books, so I'll just say my favorite part of the book was at the end when, spoiler alerts, by the way, at the end, when Harry Potter won, he got the opportunity to get much more powerful because he had the Elder Wand, but he decided to give up his power, right? I'll just say that that's my favorite part. Okay, so to go into detail here, you can say something like, and my favorite part of the book was at the end after he, let's say he won. Right, so then I'll go into a bit more detail and say something like, in particular, after defeating Voldemort, right? He managed to acquire the Elder Wand, which is basically the most powerful weapon in that world, but instead of using it for his own gain, he decided to destroy it so that no one or nobody could ever use it for evil. All right, so I'll give a brief description like that, and then I will explain why I really like it, right? So I'll say something like, this shows that Harry is not selfish and is willing to do whatever it takes to protect the world, which is a quality that I really love about this character. Okay. So yeah, that's my explanation. So yeah, instead of talking about the entire book, first of all, you're just going to be talking about it in general, and then you can pick a favorite part, and then you can go into detail about that favorite part. So first of all, you need to describe it, and then after, you can explain why you like this part. What does evil mean? It means not good. Okay, it just means evil. I don't know what to tell you, man. Okay, the best part is the well-built world, character development, and clear description of the main character. Yeah, sure. Mr. Snape, despite being considered a bad guy, had an unrequited love for Harry Potter's mom. That sounds really weird out of context. Imagining that scene always brought my eyes out. Okay, sure. Of course, why not? Okay, so yeah, that's the main part that I will talk about. And I think if you can do this part well, it's basically like 1 minute. Probably. I could probably do this in a minute. And then I'll add some other details. So for example, I'll talk about the introduction, right? So I can talk about things like the author. I can talk about why I read this book. I can talk about when I read it. Okay. And then for the final part, I'll just say something very general, like I would recommend it for others. World building is something J.K. Rowling did right. I don't really care, man. Like I said, I never read the books. I barely saw the movies. I don't think I saw I saw like 2 of them. That's all. I don't watch movies. So yeah. Yes, for you. I do not watch movies. I am blind. I don't read. I don't watch movies. I just exist on this world. Okay, so anyway, that's how you would talk about the book that you enjoyed reading. So would you like me to give it a try? Would you like me to give it a try, or shall we move on to part 3? It's overrated anyway, just an opinion, please spare me. It's okay. It's fine. It's just your opinion. I don't think it really matters. Give it a try. Give it a try. Okay. I mean, I can, but alright, whatever. Let's just give it a try. It's just 2 minutes, right? So, I'll press the button when I'm ready. And I'm saying either ways, alright. So 2 minutes starts right now. So today I would like to talk about a book that I really enjoyed reading. It's Harry Potter, which is a fantasy book series that was written by J.K. Rowling, who was a British author. And I read this book a long time ago, back when the movies for this book series were coming out. I really liked the movies, so I decided to pick up the books to see if it was as good as the movies. And yeah. In terms of the plot of the movie, the plot of the book, it's basically like a typical fantasy adventure story with many thrilling plot lines, heroic moments, and interesting characters. And there are many parts of the book that I enjoyed, but my favorite part was at the end of the story, after Harry Potter had won. So in particular, after defeating Voldemort, he managed to acquire the Elder Wand, which is basically like the most powerful weapon in this world. And instead of using it for his own gain, he decided to break it and to get rid of it so that nobody else could ever use it for evil purposes. And I really enjoyed that part, and I really liked it because it shows that Harry Potter is a very selfless character and that he would rather give up ultimate power to save the world. And so yeah, that book really left a lasting impact on me, and I think that in the future, if anyone wants to, number 1, have a very interesting story to read, and number 2, to learn a little bit of English, I will definitely recommend it for them. Okay, so yeah. Nói 1 phút 35 giây, còn dư 25 giây. Okay, so that was a pretty good talk. You don't need to max out 2 minutes every single time. It's kind of not necessary. You only need to talk for more than 1 minute, and so I think 1 minute 30 seconds is good enough. Because if you keep talking over 2 minutes, sometimes you're creating pressure for yourself that's not really necessary. Right? Just try your best to say something that's longer than a minute. That was smooth because we spent like 2 minutes thinking about the topic. Okay. Right, there you go. So that's for part 2. So now you know how to talk about your favorite book. You don't really need to talk about it in its entirety. You only need to talk about how it is in general, and then you can give a part of the story that you really enjoy. Okay? Any questions? All right, so if you guys don't have any questions, I think we can move on to part 3. By the way, I'm going to be sending this to all of the Zeplau groups, so if you want it, don't forget to join. Okay. Yeah, you don't need to answer the questions. Like I said, you don't really need to answer any of these questions because it says you should say. It doesn't say you must say, right? So yeah, you don't really need to talk about the questions. Just talk about the book. All right? I'm going to be honest. In the past, 9 times that I took the test, I didn't even read these questions, right? I never read them anymore because it's completely unnecessary because... Okay, here's a secret. Don't tell anyone. But there's not 1,000 different part 2 questions. It's more or less just 10. There are 10 different questions, right? And when you practice enough, you start to get a, let's say, sort of a basic outline that you can use for all of them. And so after a while, every single question just sort of feels the same. And you don't really need to use the suggestions anymore. Okay, right, so let's move on to part 3 then. So someone suggested that we talk about celebrities, so let me look up some questions for that. Part 3, IELTS Speaking Celebrities. Ready? Okay. Celebrities, okay. What are some good questions about celebrities? Okay, so I found some questions, so let's just put them in. Okay, so we have a bunch of questions. Yeah, I don't think we have enough time to do all of them, but we can do a lot of them. So let's talk about the first question then, celebrities. So question number 1, what kinds of people become famous these days? I've tried to narrow down the number of topics, but it's still 30. Okay, I've narrowed it down to 4. There are 10 big ones, but it's basically 4. Anyway, so let's talk about part 3, celebrities. So what kinds of people become famous these days? So give me your answers. Give me your answers. What kind of people are famous? I keep seeing that name. I have no idea who that is. Who the heck is Virus? What is that? No, they're not talking about what platforms they use. They're just talking about what kinds of people. People with controversies. The right kind and the wrong kind. What do you mean by that? That's a very vague answer. Good-looking people, comedians, TikTokers. Same question here. Influencers. They mean, oh, that is it? I don't know. So influencers, food reviewers, Outlook. Outlook is a platform by Microsoft to send emails. What is that? I think you mean musicians, right? People with scandals. Hello, Hai. He is that guy, gained fame from notoriety. A-list actors. All kinds of people. Actually, to be specific, anyone who's talented can be catapulted to stardom, sure. People with real perseverance or someone who has notorious scandals. So as long as you get the money for that press, who do the art entertainment activities, okay, scandalers. What are scandalers? I don't think that's a word, man. Okay, so I'm pretty sure, judging from everything that everyone has commented so far, basically you're telling me that everyone and anyone can be famous, right? You're basically, from all of your comments, it's basically everyone can be famous these days, correct? People who bring values to society. Okay, I completely agree. But basically, anyone can become famous, right? So that should be your direct answer. You can say something like, well, I think that today anyone can become a famous person, right? It's basically everyone. And this is your direct answer. So to keep talking, just give a reason, right? So explain, why do you think people today can gain fame so much more easily compared to the past? Why is that? A celebrity is a widely recognized public figure, often famous for their work in entertainment. Yes, that's right. That is, in fact, the definition. So it's easier to become famous now, but why? Why is it easier? Why is it easier? The development of the internet, accessibility, more forms of media. That's an interesting one. Thanks to development of social media. All right, so social media is your biggest reason, right? Social media. Okay, I agree. All right, so let's say the reason is social media, but we can't just say, I think that today anyone can become a famous person because of social media. That's still a bit too vague. So you should probably add more detail into your answer. So what does social media help people do? And why does social media help them achieve fame easier? Or more easily, I should say. So yeah, try answering that. Because of the evolving trends of social media, the influencers are truly influencing. Thanks for that. I really like that comment. Influencers are influencing. The simple reason for this is that people have more chance to access anything from social media. Easily get viral. Yeah. Make the world flat. What do you mean make the world flat? People can connect together as a community. I don't see what that has to do with becoming famous. The proliferation of social media platforms has that's not the right word. Revolutionized is the right word. The way people reach wider viewers, okay? Well, the viewers are not wider. I think you mean to say wider audiences. People who have drama on social media can instantly become famous, okay? Widespread. So basically, from what I've been reading, from your comments, social media helps people become famous because they can reach a wider audience, okay? We don't say a wider viewer. A wider viewer just means that the viewer, the person who's watching, is wider. Like, it's a big person like me, okay? That's a wider viewer. When you're talking about more people, you say a wider audience, okay? Because audience means the number of people who are watching, okay? Right, so that's the biggest reason, right? To reach a wider audience. So let's keep going with this. So let's say I think that today anyone can become a famous person. This is because social media enables them to reach a wider audience and show off, right? Show off something means you just do something on the internet that's fun, that's that's of value to other people, or just something that's very controversial, right? So that's basically what show off means. So, and show off their talents and gain fans, right? So that's the reason. So here we have 30 words, and that's good enough for a part 1 answer. But for part 3, it's not long enough. Usually in part 3, you try to answer as long as you can because it's the last part of your speaking test, meaning that it's your last chance to impress the examiner, right? So you got to go all out. Okay? So what else can you talk about? No, this is part 3 actually. It's a part 3 question. So you need to keep going. So what can you say after this? Because you've already explained why people like this can become famous. So what should you do here? Fantastic answer. Name. I'm not sure if you're a Mr. or a Miss. I'll just call you name. All right. We can give examples. That's really good. You're learning. Okay. This is a really important skill. Whenever you don't know what to talk about in part 1 or part 3, the easiest way to keep going is to give an example. So here you give an example about a person who has become famous recently thanks to social media. I'm a Missy. Okay. So Miss Name. Thank you. Okay. Misname means you name something incorrectly, but okay. Oh, Avocado says they can expose themselves. No. Don't say that. Don't say that. Expose yourself means you take off your clothes. Okay? So, that's not what that word means. Okay. You say something like they can gain exposure. You don't say they can expose themselves. All right? That's not what that word means. All right. So yeah, give an example. So who, talk about their impacts. That's another way, but it's a bit harder because you have to think about the impacts. I think giving an example here makes a lot more sense. So give me an example. Who's your favorite celebrity that you follow on social media? Give me some examples. I'm definitely not going to know who they are. You, no, not me. I'm not famous enough yet. Okay. Not anywhere close. Oh, I'm flattered, but I'm not famous. Okay. People keep talking about virus. Who is virus? And you know what? I'm looking him or her up. I don't know who that is. All right. Who is this person? Okay. What is this? Streamer, musician. What did he do? What he do? I have no idea who this is. Okay, never mind. Let's not talk about it anymore. Okay. Taylor Swift makes sense, but Taylor Swift didn't get famous from social media that much. She already had a following before social media exploded. He cheated on many girls. Yep, that right there is not good. I really don't know. Okay, listen. My day involves waking up, going to work, and going to sleep. No idea. Can you talk about convey? Yeah, sure. I think convey is a good example to give here. So you can say something like, so for example, in my country, there is a very famous, you can say, is she a TikToker? I don't know. I'm scared of using that word. Right. So this is an example that I hear a lot of my students saying. So something like a very famous named Kanvi who got popular from her viral video of her speaking in the 7 languages, right? Okay. He has an extra girlfriend. Okay. Okay. So yeah. Video maybe on social media here to make it a bit more coherent. Can we mention Uncle Ho? Well, you can, but the question is about famous these days, so it's a bit off topic. Okay? I know. It's a good example, but not for these days. All right. So yeah, 7 languages. How many languages can I speak? I don't know. I speak 3. All right. Anyway, so for this question, 60 words. I think it's good. You can probably move on after this, but if you want to keep talking, it's really easy. Just say how you feel about this person. So you can talk about how you feel about Kanvi and her becoming famous, right? The judge won't know. I think he will. I think she might. I think they will. Caban? Who is Caban? Who are these people? Come on. You're making this up? I don't know any of these people. Okay. So the point is, keep talking till the examiner stops you. You keep talking until you run out of ideas. Okay? So, for example, you can say something here like, and I'm really glad that people like her have become famous because they, let's say, they positively influence the younger generation to study harder. And, I think we can stop there. Just say to study harder and be better. Okay. Right, I think that's like the best answer I can give right now. What is hiện tượng mạng? What do you mean? I don't even know what that means in Vietnamese. He's famous for his viral videos about online gangster lifestyles. Who? Yeah, you can use the word inspire here. That makes sense too. Okay, listen. I am a drama-free person. I don't welcome negative drama in my life. I just ignore everything. Oh, a phenomenal sensation. Okay. Oh, like those people. So you can say something like an internet sensation. I think that makes more sense. Internet sensation. Okay. Right. But yeah, I think this is a decent enough answer. All right. So give an answer, explain your answer, try to give an example, and then you can talk about how you feel about the example that you just gave. I'ma borrow that. Okay, take it. It's not mine. I didn't copyright it. That's the reason why the government should ban someone like that. I don't know nothing about nobody here, so please don't sue me. Okay? I need to say that because you guys are gonna get me in trouble. They're gonna say, "Oh no, these people are coming onto his live stream and talking badly about others." Then I'm gonna get cancelled. So I do not wish to be affiliated with this. Okay, keep me out of this. All right. Anyway, so yeah, second question is pretty repetitive, right? It's basically the same thing as the question above. Is it easier or more difficult to achieve fame? We already talked about this. So let's move on. Let's try a different question. So how about this one? What are the hardships of being a celebrity? Yeah, you can use the old forecast questions. It's fine. Just practice. That's the main thing. Okay. Please stop talking about other people in my chat. Okay? But okay, you're explaining it. Okay, that's fine. That's fine, Ginger. My apologies. My bad. But let's not talk about other people. Okay, privacy violations. Okay, not allowed to date. Not allowed to date? What do you mean? All right. Disturbed by paparazzi. That makes sense. Cyberbullying. Being observed at every moment. Okay, so basically no privacy, right? And that ties into the second question as well. So no privacy. Constant scrutiny and pressure to be perfect. Okay, I really like that idea. TikTok doesn't like that idea. I'm sorry. See that? Do you hear that sound? That sound means that your idea is not good. I'm kidding. It's great. It's a great idea. Okay, so no privacy and face scrutiny. Okay. So scrutiny. Can anyone explain what scrutiny means? It's a noun. What does it mean? So, misname. You said this, so please explain what you mean. Yeah, soi mói makes sense. Yep. Yeah. Ginger, you're explaining a word by using it in a sentence. So, you're using the word in the definition. But yeah, basically some soy, yeah, makes sense. So scrutiny basically means that people will always look at what you do and they will always criticize and judge you, and they'll look at you very closely to see if you mess up, and then they will cancel you basically. Yeah. So no privacy, and they have to face scrutiny, and they are always under pressure to be perfect. Okay, I think this is more so for K-pop idols. I don't think many people expect famous people to be completely perfect, but yeah. Yeah, so they have to be careful about every single gesture, action, and word that they have, right? Okay, so that's some good ideas. Now we just need to cobble all of this together to make an answer. All right, so let's add everything together. So let's say I think that there are many challenges. Okay, challenges is another word for hardship, right? When people are famous. So the first one is that they have no privacy because they are always let's say, disturbed by the paparazzi. How do you spell paparazzi? I've never spelled this word before. How do you spell it? It's paparazzi. It's like this. Oh, it's papa and razzi. Okay, paparazzi. Okay, there we go. It's an Italian word. Paparotto. What is paparotto? The reasonable. What do you mean the reasonable? Reasonable means that you can use reason. Oh, it is. Cool. Paparotti. Okay, that's a good way to remember it. Paparotti. All right, yeah, it's an Italian word. I have no idea what it means, but it's actually a plural. So, do you know spaghetti? Spaghetti is also plural. The singular form is spaghetto. So it's spaghetti is many spaghetto. Right? So paparazzi is many paparazzo. I can speak Italian. Did you know that? You want to hear me speak Italian? Io sono la ragazzo. It means I'm a boy. I learned it on Duolingo. Italian, please. Ferrari, Lamborghini. That is so racist. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all of my Italian viewers. I'm sorry. Okay, so that's the first reason, right? The second reason is that every action they take is always scrutinized by the media and the public, so they always have to be careful about everything they say and do, which puts a lot of pressure on them. Okay. So is this a good enough answer? I think it is. It's 59 words. That's good. They are usually under pressure of creating appealing content. Content, no S. Contents means the things that are contained within something else. You call it the contents. So, for example, you say if you have a box and you put your toys in there, the contents of the box are the toys, or is the toys, whatever. Content, when you're talking about like videos and articles and things like that, it's uncountable. So how long should I keep my answer? You should keep your answer as long as you can make it. So if you run out of ideas, you can stop. If you still have ideas, then keep going. Okay. How to boost my speaking band score from 7 to 8? 7 to 8 means that you are a good speaker, right? So 7 means that you can communicate properly. 8 means that you can speak well. Okay, keep tapping. What do you mean keep tapping? What are we tapping? Oh, keep yapping. Okay. Yes, keep yapping. Okay, the third or the fourth question actually. So, it's a bit easy. So, and actually we're out of time. I was gonna do another question, but I think that's about all the time we have today. All right. So, boost IELTS Speaking 5.5 to 6.5. That's much easier. 5.5 to 6.5. You need to work on your pronunciation and your fluency. Okay, that's the two main things to get a 6.5. Fluency and pronunciation. Okay? So, make sure that every single word you say is understandable. Okay? Don't skip over any of the sounds, any of the syllables in a word. Don't miss your final sounds. Don't pronounce anything incorrectly to the point that people can't understand you. What's the difference between speaking properly and speaking well? Speaking properly means correctly, in my opinion, okay? So you can answer the question. You can answer to a point where people can understand you, and everything you say is correct, okay? Speaking well means that you can use, for pronunciation, let's take an example for pronunciation. it means that not only can you pronounce things correctly, you can also use more advanced pronunciation features. So, for example, you can pause for effect. You can use emphasis in your sentences, right? And to do that, it takes a lot of practice. How long did it take you to get to band 9? The first time I ever took the IELTS, I got an 8.5. So, I don't know, 4 years. How do I practice my final sound? They either sound too strong or completely missing. I think you should work on common mistakes first. So, for example, if you keep messing up the sound, it is, then practice that and only that. And then you just keep going and then you correct one mistake at a time. How to practice listening skill. Listen. Why do people say that it's easy to get a band 9, but I just have a band 6? I don't know who says that it's easy. It's simple. It's not easy. Simple means that you can do it. It takes time. Easy means that you can do it and it doesn't take a lot of time. Okay? So for listening, you need to identify your mistakes, like where you're going wrong. What kind of mistakes are you making? Is it because you don't understand what they're saying? Or is it because you don't understand the question? Or did you pick the wrong answer because you misunderstood the meaning of the answer? It's not easy to get a 9 in listening, especially if you have ADHD. That's completely a myth. I got a 9. And I am the most ADHD coded person I know. Okay? That's not true. That is completely false. Please instruct me on how to boost from 6.5 to 7.5. So 6.5 to 7.5, you need to work on being correct. Usually people at 6 and 6.5, they can communicate well, but they make common mistakes. So for example, when you talk about discussing something with your friends, instead of saying, after learning about IELTS speaking, I discussed about it with my friends. When you say like discuss about, that's a mistake. It doesn't affect people's ability to understand what you say, but it is a mistake nonetheless. Therefore, if you want to go from 6 to 7, you need to be able to completely erase all these minor mistakes. Well, maybe not completely, but more or less most of these common mistakes. Okay. I had a yawn and I lost 2 answers in a row. I'm going to tell you why. That's also a lie. I took 10 IELTS tests between 2018 and 2022. All 9s on listening. Okay? And some of those tests I took on 4 hours of sleep. Okay? So I've taken the IELTS test while I was sleeping. It's still possible to get a 9. Okay? It's not... You shouldn't blame it on outside conditions, right? Don't blame it on anything else. It's just you need to practice more. Okay. Right. I'm sorry if that hurts to listen to, but that's the truth. Don't blame it on anything else except for, your own ability. How can I improve my ability to think faster to keep up with my speaking speed? How about slowing down? How about that? Slowing down. Okay? Because when you speak really quickly, you won't be able to think as fast, and so you make mistakes. So slow down. Okay? If you want to talk fast, that's fine. But IELTS doesn't really require you to talk fast. They require you to not talk slowly. So keep a normal speed, something like this, and it's fine. Okay? No way, the first time I got a 9, but the second I got an 8.5, sorry, it may not be true to you. But it's true for me. Okay, whatever. You do you. As they say. You do you. Alright, so yeah, slow down. Don't put pressure on yourself to be able to speak faster. Most people don't like people who speak too quickly anyway. Talking from experience, every single time that I speak too quickly, people yell at me. Alright, but anyway, I think it's about time that we call it a day. So thank you everyone for joining me today. It's been a really good stream. You guys really like speaking, so we're gonna try to do more speaking. The examiner yelled at me. Yeah, no, the examiner has never yelled at me. Okay? Even at times when I got nervous and I talked really quickly, they never yelled at me. Okay. But anyway, I think that's about all for today. Again, thank you everyone so much for joining me. We are going to be skipping this Friday, actually. Sorry, I forgot to announce that. We're not going to stream this Friday because I have a thing. So probably not going to stream on Friday. But if I can, then I will. But I'm just saying ahead of time, it's probably not going to happen. Okay, but we will return on Monday, which is cool. We'll do some speaking too, or writing. Will you stream on your Tổ Hùng Vương? I don't know, that's an interesting question. Maybe I should. Why not? I'm not doing anything anyway. Okay, but yeah, thank you everyone for your time. Let's end the stream there. Bye.